So this time we're going to be doing a special project. I'm going to be reaching down to E for the first time in this system. And of course, the first thing we need to deploy in any subsystem is the deep space relay, which is on this rocket right now. And in this episode, I can demonstrate interplanetary travel and how I do it. Actually, taking a look at what phase is even. Oh, I just now noticed. I never noticed before, but it's on a slightly eccentric orbit. As you can see, similar to this one over here. So the plan is to first enter orbit around Kerbin. And I would like to circularize as much as possible and not get an apoapsis that's too high. I don't like how unstable this is acting. I can still fly it, so it's not a big problem. Oh, I just now noticed the heading readout. I never saw that there before. Yeah, look at this. I'm just going to stop burning for a moment. Yeah, this is what it's looking like right now. So we can just wait until we're at the apoapsis and finish. Going to quick save right here. And the reaction wheel isn't great, so we're going to need to wait for that. I'm not sure why this is so hard to pilot. It must have some kind of weird and natural frequency problems. I bet the gimbal of this thruster is actually causing the problems. If I turned off SAS, it might help. Yeah, look at that. No problem anymore. It was the gimbal. So apparently the gimbal of this thruster is just enough to hit the natural frequency of this shape here, which makes it oscillate violently. And it doesn't help that it flexes right along here. Unfortunately, we won't be using the stage for very much longer. There. And so now the next part, or the next step, is to shrink our orbit down to where this is. So for that I'm going to use a gravity assist from our planet at around here to accelerate and slingshot that direction, which is going to be retrograde to our current planet's orbit. So first going to quick save and then wait for the correct timing in the orbit. So about here should be fine. And now we fire prograde. This problem seems to be diminished at this altitude. Yeah, so I'm going to watch what happens to the orbit as we do this. Notice how easy it is to increase the apoapsis from here at the periapsis, and how it's increasing as it gets larger. And so now, this is how it's affecting our orbit around the star. So we're going to want it to bring it to around here. That should be the perfect point. And we can also, from there, adjust our inclination to match Eve, which is also good. And that's going to be the escape vector. So now we just wait and watch as well, actually. Yeah, once we get around here, we're going to tilt it, as well as, I think, move this down until we get a good approach with our target. Currently, this is the closest approach, and depending on how we move this up and down, we can shift the forward and backward our point on the approach vector. Hold on. Just going to... Oh, we missed this point, which would have been the perfect inclination change. But we can still change it to be better. The difficulty, however, is going to be waiting for the gimbal, the reaction wheel, to change our vector. Because there's only one small reaction wheel on this huge vessel. I probably should have put one around here, or here, or perhaps just here. So, this is going to take a lot of thrust to change, but fortunately we're out of this stage. Yeah, that inclination is not happy. They should be good enough soon, though. There, that's good enough. And now, at the periapsis, which we're going to wait for, we're going to first try burning retrograde to see what that does to the approach vector. And if that doesn't help, we'll burn prograde. It's all about the timing. And so it's going to be watching these two. Yes, and you see they're coming closer now, very slowly, because this is a really big orbit to change. And look at that, the numbers. That's in, I think, the billions. Yeah. Also, these are going to come together faster and faster as they come together, so we're going to need to slow down our burning as we come closer to the target. Fortunately, it looks like this is going to be one of the most efficient approaches possible. You see what I mean? Yeah, this is a really good approach. Look at how long we stay in its field of effect. And how little it changes our orbit once we interact with it. Yeah, this purple line is the orbit after we're out of the area of influence of Eve, and that's not very much different from our current orbit. Very good. And it looks like, actually, we don't want to ram into the planet, so let's take a closer look. We pass this close to it, and there it is, or supposed to be, so that should be safe. Because look at our speed, it's going to be really hard to slow down if we enter a really bad orbit with it. But I will quick save and wait for the approach, which is going to be next time around. If we get really close down to the sun, we could use a gravity assist from a low sun orbit to get really far out to either Jool or Elu. That's my least favorite place to go, though. As you can see here. Everything out here takes more time, which will be one reason to have... hold on a second. I'm just going to quickly make this orbital adjustment at periapsis. It looks like we will have plenty of fuel to position ourselves perfectly in orbit around this planet as well. I want a nearly perfect equatorial orbit with this at the highest possible altitude. There. We can probably get rid of this fairing now. And what would be the best place to... Ah, I think I remember now. Yes. I remember a technique for fixing inclination of orbits by incrementally making, I think it's either normal or anti-normal burns. So, I'm going to try to focus the normal and anti-normal on the north and south lines. And then radial in and out, it can adjust the the eccentricity of the orbit. There, at exactly 180. And now this is perfectly flat, and once we get 90 degrees around, we can adjust it one more time and it should be almost perfect. So we're going to need to wait until this shifts back out of alignment as much as possible. We're going to wait and see when the heading stops going down and starts going back up again. And we can actually see this here. And notice it's going down slower than before. And soon it will stop. And we can see at our current position, we are almost perfectly in line. Now would probably be a good time to do the burn. And see how little fuel it takes at such a high altitude as well. At a low altitude it takes a lot more effort to change these eccentricity and inclination of the orbit. There. You can see it's still not perfect, but it's good enough for right now. There. I still don't entirely like it though. I might as well change it the rest of the way. And then we can raise the apoapsis as far up as we possibly can, according to the predictions, and then do a radial burn to bring up the periapsis to where the apoapsis is. There, that looks pretty flat. So, that's another save spot. And we can burn prograde until the apoapsis comes out of orbit, and then we can burn retrograde until it just barely comes back into orbit. Yeah, like that. And then burn retrograde very softly until it comes back in, so that it's just barely under deorbiting. And we want this as high in orbit as possible. There, at 84.266948. I think that's million meters. And then, actually, if we just go to the apoapsis and burn prograde, we won't need to do any radial burns. I think radial burns are only useful for changing apoapsis and periapsis at between the two of them, and at all other times it's for doing different things. There. I want to get this as accurate as possible. So now there. That's practically perfect. And now we can just deploy this. and not jettison the extra fuel, because we could use that to change our orbit, or change to a different planet if we wanted to. And so this is our deep space relay for Eve. Normalizing everything. So now we can send and receive signals between these two planets, as well as this planet and this planet, or these two planets. And so we have communications between the two planets closest to Kerbin. Now we can also do that with all the rest of them. I think we only need to do that 4 more times for each one of the major planets. And then for the moons of Jool, we can just do medium relays on all of these moons here, because they're so far spaced out from each other. And we should also rename this to something that makes sense. There. And now I'm the sole internet provider for deep space on these two planets. Gradually building up my monopoly. And if we go to the tracking station, we can have a look at exactly how it looks from here. So because they're actually almost perfectly aligned right now, it's pretty hard to tell them apart. But you can see Duna can communicate directly with Eve. Now we're also going to want to build a communication cage around Eve as well, just like we did with Duna. Actually, did I show Duna on camera? I think I did. Yeah, anyway, that's today's episode. Slightly shorter than usual because of time restraints, as well as restraints on other things.